Welcome to this explainer. I want you to picture something with me. Imagine the heavy, deliberate thud of a massive, dusty legal volume being cracked open deep within the archives of Washington. You dust off the pages, and right there under the lamplight is a statute from the Tariff Act of 1930. Yeah, the very same legislation the world remembers as Smoot-Hawley. Today, we're diving into a legal weapon that literally slept for nearly a century, only to be suddenly jolted awake to completely rewrite continental commerce. And listen, this isn't just a story about tariffs. It's about a massive door that has just been kicked open. And the wild part is, nobody alive has ever watched anyone walk through it.
96. That is exactly how many years this provision, which trade lawyers call Section 338, just sat there, completely untouched in the United States Code. Think about that for a second. It survived 96 years of global trade wars, and it slept right through eras of deep trade peace. I mean, the absolute last confirmed reference to it in the public record, that dates all the way back to 1949. Modern trade analysts literally called it dormant, a historical relic. Well, actually, scratch that. On July 20th, 2026, it abruptly stopped being dormant, because for the very first time in history, an American president invoked this specific, sweeping authority to slap on brand new duties.
Okay, let's dive into this ticking clock, because time is absolutely everything here. The White House issued proclamations that are set to snap into reality at exactly this moment, August 19th at precisely 1 minute past midnight Eastern Time. That is, of course, unless some kind of miracle deal gets hammered out before time is up. Just 30 days from a presidential signature to real-world, massive economic impact. And let me tell you, in the super complex world of international trade, a 30-day window, that's basically the blink of an eye. This exact minute on the calendar has instantly become the absolute focal point of North American diplomacy.
Now, when this news first broke, there was one number that grabbed everyone's attention: a 50% tariff. It's a massive, frankly shocking headline rate, and it was absolutely designed to make waves. But I want us to look right past it, because 50%, that's just a flashy headline, and headlines pass. While it is the maximum financial penalty the law allows, this huge number is actually a bit of a distraction. It's masking the much deeper architectural story of exactly how trade policy is being executed behind the scenes right now.
The data brilliantly illustrates what I mean. Just look at the insane disparity in scale here. The new proclamations? They cover roughly $20 billion of American imports from Canada. Now that sounds like a huge number, until you set it against the absolutely massive $383 billion of total goods imported from Canada back in 2025. We're talking about roughly 5% of the entire trade relationship. It's not a blanket tariff at all. It is a highly localized, remarkably specific slice of commerce aimed with absolute pinpoint precision.
So, that tiny 5% slice, it is definitely not random. It surgically targets 3 very specific sectors: motor vehicles, dairy, and alcoholic beverages. And every single one of these sits at the absolute center of a long-running, really bitter bilateral grievance. We're talking about automotive tariffs and origin rules, Canada's fiercely protected supply-managed dairy quota system, and those really strict provincial controls on alcohol retailing. Now, the U.S. administration claims these practices blatantly discriminate against American commerce, a label Ottawa firmly rejects. But, setting the actual merits of the dispute aside for a second, the sheer surgical precision of this strike, it's just fascinating.
So mechanically speaking, how on earth is this actually happening? Enter Section 338. This is the raw, completely unilateral power granted by that dusty 1930 statute. It essentially gives the president the authority to just impose new or additional duties of up to 50% on imports from any country found to discriminate against United States commerce. And, as we saw with that shocking headline number, the administration didn't mess around. They went straight to the absolute maximum legal ceiling.
But right here is where the text of the law gets genuinely terrifying for trade lawyers everywhere. Because the statute doesn't just allow the president to tax goods. It contains this one phrase, or exclude from entry entirely. Let that sink in for a second. Not a tax, not a duty, a complete and total blockade at the border. This is without a doubt the most dramatic, totally untested clause in the entire law. And let me tell you, it has been hanging over these current proceedings like a massive, dark shadow. Which brings us face to face with the great unknown. We've got 96 years of a statute sitting on the books and absolutely zero case law. None. It seems no court has ever actually interpreted this provision. Think about it. Every other major tariff power in modern American trade comes with this thick, accumulated record. We know what it means, what it permits, and crucially, we know exactly where its limits are. But Section 338, it just arrives completely out of nowhere with a totally blank page.
Let's break down the legal architecture for a second to really get why this matters. Traditionally, if you want to slap on tariffs, you use familiar keys, right? Section 232, well, that needs Commerce Department investigations. Section 301 needs public hearings and comment periods that everyone can monitor for months. Even the emergency route, EPA, usually triggers intense Supreme Court litigation. But Section 338, no congressional consultation beforehand, no mandatory report afterward, and zero statutory time limit. It literally bypasses all the traditional machinery. It operates by presidential proclamation alone. Guys, it is a completely different key being used to unlock the exact same door.
Now, what's really interesting about this geographical asymmetry? I mean, why is Ottawa treating a mere 5% slice of covered trade like it's a 4-alarm national crisis? Well, look at the geography. Roughly 76% of all Canadian goods exports go straight to the United States. That's estimated to be around 19% of Canada's entire GDP. Now, this asymmetry isn't an accusation. It's simply the physical reality of a continental economy that's been built up over 80 years. But let's be real. In a high-stakes negotiation, this kind of structural imbalance translates directly into pure leverage. Washington has it, and trust me, both capitals know exactly where that leverage sits.
To put things in perspective and be perfectly fair to the data, Canada is absolutely trying to diversify. Non-U.S. markets actually hit 32.8% of their total exports recently, which, by the way, is the highest share we've seen in 4 decades. But we have to be realistic about the actual mechanics of global trade here. You simply cannot build a massive substitute market for the United States economy inside a tiny 30-day window. It's just an impossible task. The diversification? It's a genuine shift for sure, but it's merely a shift at the margins. The deeply rooted structural reality remains totally unchanged. Which brings us right into the room where it happens. Mid-August, Washington, D.C. Imagine the scene. Canada's Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Chief Trade Negotiator Janice Charette are sitting directly across the table from United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. This was their 3rd meeting in just 3 weeks. And honestly, that incredibly rapid cadence tells you everything you need to know about the immense tension inside that room. Both sides have stated publicly on the record they want a deal before that August 19th deadline. Because at this point, the deadline isn't just a threat hanging out there anymore, it literally is the schedule.
Now watch how perfectly the pieces connect back to what we covered just a few minutes ago. Look at what is reportedly sitting on that tense negotiating table right now. Eliminating auto retaliation, lifting those provincial alcohol rules, and reworking dairy quotas. Well, notice anything familiar? They map absolutely perfectly onto the 3 original tariff proclamations. That dusty 1930 weapon was taken out and aimed precisely at the exact ground this negotiation now occupies. It's brilliant, really.
But there is a massive structural shadow hanging over this entire room. The United States has flat out announced it will not renew the USMCA in its current form while these bilateral talks are ongoing, meaning the entire agreement governing North American trade is suddenly completely in play. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government isn't just in there sweating over a 5% tariff deadline. They are simultaneously trying to save the entire continental trade framework. And they're doing it all against the exact same ticking clock.
So the absolutely crucial point we need to take away is this. What actually happens at 1 minute past midnight on August 19th? Well, commercially, $20 billion of trade instantly becomes vastly more expensive. But legally? Legally, a dormant statute stops being just some theoretical concept in a history book, and it becomes a live, operational, fully tested authority. And honestly, the scariest part for the rest of the world watching this unfold, the actual text of Section 338 does not say Canada. It explicitly speaks of any country found to discriminate against U.S. commerce. A law that sleeps for 96 years doesn't magically change a single word of its text the day it wakes up. What has changed is that someone now knows it works. It just bypassed all the long investigations, the messy public hearings, the intense congressional oversight. It proved brutally, undeniably effective. And that leaves us with the single most important question of all. Now that this precedent has been firmly established, which key gets used next time and on whom? Thank you for joining this explainer. Keep your eyes locked on that clock.